Welcome to MacroMicroCosm Literary Journal. Today we have special guest author, chef, and filmmaker and martial artist Fred Yu to talk the Orchid Farmers Sacrifice and the wonderful world of sometimes esoteric Southern Kung Fu styles. Today, by popular request from our Discord server, we also have my spouse, Chris. Both Chris and I are dedicated martial artists, and we have the wonderful advantage today of Chris's years practicing Southern Kung Fu styles and Taoist styles such as Bagua. Also, his love of every Shaw Brothers film ever made. I can attest to this. They are often on a lot.
Excellent.
Thank you to Shannon at R&R Book Tours and Susan at Susan Schwartzman Public Relations for setting up this interview. MacroMicroCosm Literary Review is a podcast and quarterly literary journal focusing on speculative fiction in Canada and around the world. Links are in the description box on where you can get your print or digital copy of MacroMicroCosm's latest issue, and where you can learn more about the Orchid Farmers Sacrifice and get your hands on a copy of this amazing work of wuxia. And also make sure that you are part of the launch on October 5th. So if you're seeing this after October 5th, the Orchid Farmers Sacrifice is already out. Please go pick it up. And if you're on before, click that pre-order button and please support Fred Yu and his wonderful work of martial arts speculative fiction. A little bit about Fred. Fred Yu is a lifelong student of martial arts. He grew up watching martial arts flicks in the 80s and 90s. Yu decided early on that he would write in this genre. Inspired by George R.R. Martin's work, he decided he would write a series in English in this centuries-old Asian genre. Now, I'm used to hearing it being called wuxia. I think, did I pronounce that almost okay?
Absolutely. Wuxia.
Yu has written 3 previous novels, The Legend of the Snow Wolf, Haute Tea Cuisine, and Yin Yang Blades. Yu has a BFA film and television from NYU Tisch School of Arts. He was born in Guangzhou, China, but presently lives in New York City. And I'm going to turn it over to Fred. Give us a little about yourself. Say hi. How's it going?
Hi, how's it going? Life is an interesting journey, right? And I never thought I'd be a writer, but always a storyteller. So I decided, you know what, I'm going to tell stories with a camera. So I went to film school. And interestingly enough, after I graduated from film school, I went to work in a bank. And I didn't tell many stories in the bank, but actually I did. But I decided I was going to write because, you know, you can't work in a bank and film at the same time, but you could always turn on your computer and write stories. So I decided that every day I get home, I'm going to start writing my stories. And that's what I did. And I outputted my first novel. It took a long time because it's not the same as writing full time. It's you come home, you're tired, you're squeezing half an hour and then you're about to pass out, etc. And this is like after happy hours, right? So yeah, that's what you do when you work in a bank. You go to happy hour. So, but I did finish that novel, and it was published through China Books. It's the same genre, not exactly the same world, and not the same characters. But that got me thinking, you know what? I'm going to change my career. I think I'm a pretty good writer. I'm just going to do that instead. So here I am. Along the way, there's some clarification about the intro. The other 2 books are not novels. The Tea Cuisine is a cookbook. And I've spent a year experimenting, researching on extracting artisan Chinese teas in French sauces. And the book is the result of that. And the other is my knife system. It's an instructional book on using double knives, 1 knife in each hand. So those are my other publications out there. But in terms of fiction, which is what I want to do going forward, this next book is the one we're talking about, Orchid Farmers Sacrifice.
Beautiful. Okay, now from a martial arts perspective, let's just kind of unpack Yin Yang Blades just a little bit, just out of interest's sake, before we get into the Orchid Farmers Sacrifice and the amazing work that you've done creatively with that. Yin Yang Blades, it's a Taoist kind of fighting system that you've created, or?
I didn't create.
You didn't create, okay.
And unfortunately, I have to confess that I had to repackage it because I didn't remember the sequence. My Sifu has passed on. And I do remember at least most of the moves, I like to say, if not all. But the sequence, I did what was logical and I repackaged it. Okay. And just in case I get run over by a bus, I outputted a book so that it'll be out there forever, so it won't be lost. It is a Taoist art. This is my primary system that I've trained in for many years, called Wu Mei. And I have done Shaolin internal arts, but my external arts is mostly Taoist. And Yin Yang Blades is really you have the Yang blade. This is a pen, okay? I'm not stabbing anyone.
Well, it is mightier, so you know.
It is. And I have two of them.
Yeah. Superpowered.
So the Yang blade is held like most people hold knives on the left hand, and the Yin blade is held like people hold, Halloween stabbing French chef knife type of a. and that, yes, exactly. Oh, you catch on fast. You're dangerous.
It's many years of different forms of sabers and swords. Right, that's good. Yeah.
But then when you get to a certain age, you still need your knees to go up there and drive it.
Mine just make a little music when I try and do that now. It's like the percussion section in my knees, but hey, the hands are still going.
So that's what that is about.
You talk about sometimes about some of these amazing arts that end up almost dying away. And, being able to preserve a lot of these martial arts and these systems is so important. We don't want to lose this knowledge. We don't want to lose that. So that sense that you're writing a book to preserve something that you were taught and to kind of carry it forward in case that, wonderfully thematic bus decided to run somebody down. It's really quite precious. I mean, I know.
It is. A lot of systems, unfortunately, some of the more esoteric ones have kind of faded away in a lot of places. And, it's beautiful to see them preserved.
Yeah.
I think they are preserved. We just don't know about it.
Yeah.
I hope so.
Yeah.
Somewhere deep in the mountains, somewhere in Asia, you have a group of practitioners and they swore that they never reveal a thing. And just out of a fictional novel, but I think it could be true.
I'd like to think that they're there.
My lineage was through a Fook Young, who was he was the person who picked up Bruce Lee when he first came to America, and it was the opera style, the Red Boat Wing Chun, and some of the smaller systems, Mantis, Bagua. It's a hodgepodge of different arts, and so some of those practices you don't see as commonly nowadays, and they're there, but again, you're right, you absolutely have to look for them in some cases.
You did the Southern Mantis or the Northern Seven Star?
Southern Mantis, yeah. And it's a lot of it was just a hodgepodge of different styles, and there's such a blending in the opera that prior to Bruce Lee saying it, Fook Young would say that everything's same. It didn't matter. A kick is a kick, punch is a punch. And he never really differentiated, and a lot of it flowed when he took what things were valuable to him and kind of incorporated into what he taught.
When you assemble all the Taoist arts, you can say that, but it's not as easy to combine a Taoist art and a Buddhist art and say the same, that a kick is a kick and a punch is a punch. At the very least, the mindset is going to be different. the saying that if you fight a Taoist master, you feel like you're fighting an empty jacket. When you're fighting a Buddhist master, you feel like you're hitting a brick wall. So fundamentally, just the thinking is going to be very different. The idea of defense using internal power, the Taoist arts will be about fajing. It will be about explosion of the strike. The Buddhists would be about an iron shirt, their use of internal power, and both have to train their butts off, but the expression will be different. I have to insert that.
Yes. Well, I'd certainly know that when we first met, and the whole, oh yeah, you're into martial arts. Okay, well, let's see what you got kind of moment, which obviously happened. And I was actually teaching. I was an instructor in a school just a ways from here. So of course, all the people were like, ma'am is dating. Where is he? Does he do martial arts? What kind of martial arts? We need to see this. It was this, all of a sudden I had a gatekeeper, a bunch of very big gatekeepers to date. And being from a Taekwondo background, predominantly Taekwondo, that was what I taught and things like that. And then Krav was more when I was teaching self-defense and just kind of things like that. If I could keep my distance and keep my I'm quite aggressive in my expression of martial arts. I tend to be very tense and aggressive. And he spent years trying to be like, okay, no, we're gonna be soft right now. You can hit hard later, but you're gonna learn how to be soft. But if I could get my space and have that aggressive, strong style from farther back, I was like, oh, hey, I got this. The second he would move in, the second he would break my distance, it was like, I felt like I could just flail. Like it was just in this intense thing. And he was so kind of fluid with it. There was this kind of fluid flow. And I'm used to this sort of aggressive getting in there, kind of, hitting quite hard. And he would just kind of like, all of a sudden he wouldn't be there. And then he's somewhere else and his hands are doing something. And it was so interesting. But at the same time, there's a huge difference between something like Taekwondo and Kung Fu and just the way that those expressions happen and the philosophies behind them. So that was fun.
Well, clearly he was calm and you weren't. Even though he advised you to be.
Yeah.
That's why he could suddenly move, because
yeah.
he was not tense to begin with.
Yeah.
But that is a Taoist martial art that you had to encounter.
Yeah.
And I'm glad.
I was not prepared for it at all. But I think that toughness was something that I now value in a different way, the way that I see the way that Kick does things and the way I see that more soft style. And not soft style as in incapable of, but just that kind of, taking that motion and redirection of force and things. I wish I'd learned it. I'm getting there. I'll get there eventually. I'll pick up your book and then I'll start training. I'll see what I can do.
I read some of the introduction and I'm gonna look at Yin Yang Blades because it was very thoughtful about your ideas on guiding your opponent into a future outcome.
Yeah,
and I like the way you blended the philosophy and brought the thoughtfulness to your book about reacting to opponents and how to anticipate and guide. And I thought it was very thoughtful and I
manufacture the future.
Yeah,
entice them into getting themselves killed, as opposed to chasing them all over the place.
Yeah.
The best way to do it.
I need to read that book. I clearly need to read Yin Yang Blades. All right. So we are actually here to talk the Orchid Farmers Sacrifice. I have a little synopsis here that was given to us by Shannon and Susan. He was born of prophecy. If he can't embrace his destiny in time, his country is doomed. Ancient China, Spoiled and overconfident, 18-year-old Mu Feng relishes life as the son of an honored general. But when his sister is abducted and his friends slaughtered, he flees home. He soon discovers the mystical birthmark on his body has attracted an enormous price on his head. Pursued across the Middle Kingdom, Feng finds allies in 2 fierce warriors and a beautiful assassin. When he learns his ultimate enemy plans an incursion with advanced weaponry, he must call on his friends and his own budding military genius to defend his country. His plan is desperate, and the enemy outnumbers him 25-1. Can Feng fulfill a duty he didn't know he had and unite the empire against a terrifying force? Whew. I hope that answer is yes. I really do. That is quite the build for an epic piece of fantasy literature. I am so excited to finish reading it and for everybody to get their hands on that. Now we have some questions for you. And one ties directly into the synopsis, and I always like to tell this one first. What do you want readers to feel at the end of the Orchid Farmers Sacrifice? What message do you want the readers to take with them?
First, I want them to be able to go to bed because they stayed up all night reading it. Okay, joking aside.
That's a great thing. When you have the people that, people in your life who read your book and they go, "You ruined me. I'm so tired. I've been up for 2 days." I got it.
Yep.
So that's a very good thing.
They want to hit me in the face, but I'll take that compliment any day. But I want my readers to feel like they've been to ancient China. I want them to close the book thinking this is what they eat there. This is how they conduct themselves. These are the politics. This is warfare. They don't throw their spears. They actually use them like pikemen. How they use their archers. I want my readers to feel like they've been taken on a journey that was worth their time, basically.
I think you've definitely done it.
I hope so.
Yeah, I can, as an editor and somebody who reviews books all the time, I can definitely say you've done that.
I even wrote in a portion on mud chicken. That's actually how they do it.
Oh my gosh.
Mud chicken, yeah.
This is maybe another idea is to try that recipe.
Well, I've seen on YouTube a modern version of it where you don't need to dig a ditch in your backyard.
Oh, what?
You can actually use oven.
I'm sure our dog Iro would be like, but I could hole. Diggy hole. I could diggy hole. Oh, sorry, bud. We'll figure out something else. He's down there. All right. Now, if you could describe the Orchid Farmers Sacrifice in 3 words, what would those words be?
High emotional tension.
Love it. Who was your favorite character to write?
I really enjoyed writing this old woman named Iron Spider, who is an elder in this poison-using sect, criminal organization where they use poison to kill people. But, while everybody's worried about getting decimated and impending doom, she's just having fun. And she's scolding and taunting everyone around her. And that's just kind of her character to have these one-liners calling everyone an amateur. And when she wants someone to shut up, she'll tell them to stop barking like a neutered dog. And, I really enjoy writing her. She's kind of a little bit of a comic relief, but, it's one of these characters that you look forward to having around, even though she's deadly as hell too, but,
She's earned her ability to be humorous because she could kill anybody by looking at them funny. It's I can say what I like. It's the sort of professor with tenure kind of thing. It's like,
yeah.
I have earned this. You
Yeah.
are not going to take it away from me. Of other people, way better than you have tried and failed. I am still here, and this is what I'm going to say. Now, hush. Go yip later. I'm talking. I love it. Does writing energize or exhaust you?
I think a lot of writers would agree that it's both. You have an idea and you can't wait to write it. And you write and you write. And then you start wondering whether it's worth the paper it's printed on. And you have this moment of self-doubt. That's when you need a beer. And then halfway through your beer, you have another idea. And then you write and you write. That's when you're energized again. And then you have another cycle of self-doubt. And you're exhausted. So, unfortunately, we can't really go in there like a sales pitch and I'm going to do this. Because after a while, you're like, does this make sense at all? Damn, I should just delete this. And you feel exhausted, really exhausted. And then by the time, your floor is littered with beer cans, you're like, maybe I should have just worked in a bank. So that's the really final exhausting moment. And the next day you have another idea. So.
And the cycle begins anew.
It does.
You take a broom, you get all the beer cans into a container for recycling, and then make sure you have another pack in the fridge.
That's right.
What are some common traps for aspiring writers?
Exactly what we just talked about, this endless cycle of self-doubt and I can do this and I'm on top of the world, and then you're doubting yourself again. And I would tell myself, just shut up and tell the damn story. But it's not that easy. It gets in your head. Yeah.
I can attest to that. It's a lot of it is that mental game of actually just stopping that inner critic and put the words on the page.
Yeah.
It's something I have to tell a few of the authors that I work with. I edit. I am an editor. There's a publishing company here, and it's that stop. No, don't go back and edit for grammar. Put the words on the page. Write it down. Yeah, but I've got this idea here. Write it down. Yeah, but what if it's not? Write it down. Things will progress as they progress. The steps will go. Nothing can happen unless it's written down, unless you get over that kind of inner gremlin that can kind of go, what are you doing?
But that logic forms again during that beer that you're, in between excitement and self-doubt. And then after the self-doubt, while you're sipping on the beer, oh yeah, that's right, I should just write this damn thing. And then you have an idea and you write.
The inhibitions are gone. You just go, there you go. Do you try to be more original or to deliver to readers what they want? Kind of that sense of originality or sort of almost save the cat formulaic kind of thing?
I try to do both. I try to, especially in this genre that I write in, I try to build a world, an authentic world. I try to build a world with mud chicken and martial arts, at least in this book one, in small bite sizes. I wouldn't unload like some of the ideas I put into that knife book on a fiction, because it's probably not what they want, but it's also an experience to see somebody else's world, as long as it's enough of it so that they're still entertained and they're still learning about something that you don't normally see. Well, maybe Shaw Brother movies, you get a lot of that, but that's you have to find them on YouTube. You have to dig now. They're not on Channel 5 3:00 every Saturday anymore. That was when I was growing up. So, but in terms of giving readers what they want, I try to do that too. I want them to walk away thinking they've had a really exciting experience, that the excitement lasted to the very end, and they came for entertainment, they got their entertainment. I try to do that too.
That wonderful balance.
I really enjoyed, from the very beginning. My time's been limited lately. I have a beautiful rare day off. I'm usually seeing COVID patients and that type of thing. So it's been a busy couple of years. But what I really loved is your book took me to that era, and you built tension right from the beginning. And I've been enjoying it so far. So I really appreciate that. It's nice to have that escapism, right?
Yeah. I hope to do that for the readers too.
Oh.
Yeah. Chris is a medical professional.
Yeah, you see COVID patients.
Yeah.
But you're fully vaccinated.
So for me to be able to give, to be like, read this, and for him to be like, ooh, and to actually just sit back and enjoy something that's quite within his wheelhouse of what he enjoys, and to see just a little bit of that joy in his face, it's stellar. And you gave us that because of how you wrote the Orchid Farmers Sacrifice. So thank you very much.
Thank you for that.
Now, do you want each book to stand on its own, or are you trying to build a body of work with connections between each book? Now, I know your first novel was in a similar world, but not this one. So we know that one, but when it comes to the Orchid Farmers Sacrifice and what you're writing now.
I do plan to. I think if I'm serious about world building, and actually not world building because although it's a fictional world, it's still rooted into actual culture and heritage of ancient China. But I'm never going to tell everything in one book. So I am going to, after the series planned for 4 books, try to keep some of the characters, maybe they're old by the next series, but stay in this world and continue telling the story in this culture and this world and see how far I can get. It's a lot more to write about than one book, put it that way. Yeah.
And when you have such a rich world to go into, it's impossible to say it. It's the whole adage on a film too. How do you tell everything in 90 minutes? Well, you can't.
You can't.
It's impossible. So you need to have that deeper connection that continues on for more and more time. So thank you for keeping that going. Now, how did publishing your first book change your process of writing?
The process really hasn't changed. What I did realize is that it's very, very hard to write after a long day in I want to say 9-to-5 job, but you never really get out of 5, and after a 9-to-9 job, you go home, you eat something, and then you squeeze in half an hour, 1 hour. It's hard. So now I write full time. The process is the same process, but I don't have to reread yesterday's and half my hours over and then start writing. I have more hours during the day, so that will be a major difference.
Yeah, and there's so many authors, and this is something I think a lot of burgeoning authors, which I get a lot of people who are trying to, they're shopping their first book or things like that, kind of as part of the MacroMicroCosm community, which is a brilliant thing. But there's so many that put the pressure on themselves to be full-time writing right away. And what they don't realize is that the vast majority of authors are never full-time. I remember being in the Writers Union of Canada annual general meeting back in 2014, and it was my first year of eligibility, being there as a full member and carrying around my first book, and everybody that I was talking to was like, great, you're an author, what's your day job? And everybody had a day job. And I was standing here in the middle of the Writers Union of Canada, and everybody's like, oh, I work for the government, or I do this, or I'm a professor, or I'm this or this. And I was just like, my illusions have exploded, they're gone, and suddenly that almost sense of creative guilt disappeared, because it's like, oh, it takes time to get there. And some people go there and some people don't.
Yeah.
So yeah, and it's that struggle. It's that tough struggle to carve out half an hour, 40 minutes, even 20 minutes at a time to try and get something done before things kind of collect and keep going. So congratulations for getting through that part of the struggle. And now you're on to the beautiful part where you can actually struggle in a different way.
New struggles.
Plot and setting and shoveling cans of beer into another bag. So congratulations on graduating to a completely different kind of struggle. Now, speaking of struggle, what inspired you to write the Orchid Farmers Sacrifice?
Well, I grew up in this genre, writing and watching the films, the Shaw Brother films, and I wrote my first book in the same genre. And afterwards, I stayed in the day job for a while, doing only the day job, developing that career. And, I started reading R. Martin, and then the HBO series came out, and I was following that. Everybody was. And I thought, you know what? Minus the dragons and the magic, how is this a different world from the stuff I write about? Everybody is after that position of power, just like every other wuxia book out there. So I thought, you know what? I'm going to write my own series in my own genre, in my own world that I like to write in, and we'll see where it goes.
What's your favorite underappreciated novel?
Well, the hard part of this question is underappreciated. Fortunately, there is one that it's the Judge D series, written by Robert van Gulik. And he was a Dutch ambassador to China decades ago. And he was fluent in a lot of languages. And he discovered a detective story about a judge hundreds of years ago, written hundreds of years ago. The judge existed probably around 700 AD, I would say. And he was fascinated by that story. And so he translated it. And it did so well, he decided he's going to write more of his own in this, with the same characters and the same genre in English. And so he has a whole series of Judge D books you can still find on Amazon. It's still in print. And subsequently, all these films, TV shows, even comics of the same Judge D character grew out of China, Hong Kong, and just the box office was tremendous. And nobody knew it came from a Dutch ambassador, a Westerner, of course, who spoke Chinese. So I think that's some serious underappreciation, but I'm fortunate that I have it in English and I read all of them. So.
Hey.
Yeah.
How do you balance making demands on the reader with taking care of them?
I mean, what exactly is making demands on a reader, right? The job of the writer is to take care of the reader, is to give them a story that's free from plot holes, that they don't have a question that at the end of the series is never answered. It's the job of the writer. I mean, that's what I try to do, that the reader will come out satisfied and will not have questions that they will post on the internet, and hopefully the author will find it and get to answer it. I want to be able to answer it in the book.
Yeah. And what does literary success look like to you?
Oh, it's simple. I get to write all the time, and I have a lot of people who wants to read it. It's just that simple. And I am successful if my readers think I'm successful. It's the market decides. That's it.
Okay. Do you view writing as in a kind of spiritual practice way?
I think the answer again is it's both. It depends on what stage of the writing you're in. When I start planning my plots, I do it in Excel. I have an Excel spreadsheet where every revelation, every scene, every, I guess, chunk of detail that is going into the book is in one cell. And then I number them so I could sort them based on when the reader's supposed to, the sequence the reader's supposed to see each thing, when it actually happens in the world that I'm writing about, when the main character is supposed to see each item, and I sort them up and down while I plan. And that's not very spiritual, but it works. Then you write the first draft and you emerge out of it and you're like, whoa, I've been gone for a long time. So that part, okay, I guess, you know, when you're in a distant place and you're in the world that you've created, but at the same time you have no control over, that to me is a feeling that I've tapped into something. And then comes editing. And it's not nothing spiritual about the editing process, other than I probably need to convert to whiskey instead of beer.
Oh, yes.
So, yeah.
I can say as an editor, I'm both sorry and glad. Refiner's fire. Gotta wash it down with something. Now, how do you select the names of your characters?
Well, in this genre, it's actually harder. I need names that sound authentic, but people can actually pronounce. And then I need names that won't have someone cracking up. Like the name Fuk is a very common name among Chinese, but you know, spelled F-U-K, it's going to be a lot of people laughing instead of sympathizing with my character. So I try to have names that are one syllable, easy to pronounce, and then otherwise I try to use their nicknames like Iron Spider or the Commoner. Or, you know, I try to make things that are English words because they're nicknames, and everything else remains authentic. But, you know, there's no shortage of making them up because it is in a different language. So I get a free pass there too.
Yeah. I think you've probably answered this already, just from what you've already told us. So if you didn't write, what would you do for work?
You know what? I did not tell you.
Okay.
I almost started a fast food chain right before the pandemic in New York City.
Ooh.
And instead of thinking I'd better go back to a bank, I invented a poached food system, a healthy poached food system, where, you know, thin sliced ingredients, meats and fishes and stuff, properly protected against scorching water, is selected in a fast food line by the customer, and it's dunked right into the hot water for about 30 seconds, right in front of them. And then, you know, you have the base, you layer the sauce, you put in the sides, pay, get out. And you know, I'm actually very fortunate I didn't do it, because even today, foot traffic in New York City is not even close to where it was. And this is all dependent on foot traffic doing fast food chains. So I got lucky. I got really lucky.
Sounds like a speedy version of a hot pot.
Yes, yes. With many variations of pre-made sauces in large tubs. Choose one, dump it on, out.
Love it.
Yeah.
Love it.
Almost did it.
I would eat there.
Yeah.
I found all the science behind why it's healthier to eat anything that's not scorched or burned or browned. Like anything cooked in water is good for you. And I have all the science to back it up. And I was ready to pitch this to every person walking through that door, but thank God I didn't.
Oh my goodness. Your timing. I just,
I got lucky.
Yeah. Maybe that's something for later. Maybe that's not a never, but not now. But
well, we're glad you chose to write books.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're glad we have the Orchid Farmers Sacrifice. We are glad it is here. So
Thanks.
at the same time, our stomachs are Now hungry. Do you read your book reviews, and how do you deal with bad or good press when it comes to your books?
You know, unfortunately, I'm still starting out, and I haven't had enough book reviews to pop up a bad one yet. Of course, it's inevitable, but so far, the reviews that I've had from bloggers, from people online, have been positive, and I'm glad that they were. So I just bragged about it on social media, basically. Now, what would I do when that bad book review does come up? I'll probably just not brag about it, and that's it. I guess. Yeah.
Goes over there.
Sweep it under the beer cans.
Although this is one thing that I actually got to say to another author. If that bad review comes from, say, the opposite of your target market, it's almost a badge of honor. I had some feedback from one of my authors. There was somebody that was complaining that this book was nothing like a cozy mystery. Well, it's a cyberpunk science fiction thriller. No, it's not going to be like a cozy mystery. Like, no. And they wanted a cozy mystery. Well, sweetheart, thank you, but this is thank you for your time. But at the same, they were like, well, what do I do? What do I do? I'm like, well, is this person in your target market? Are they somebody that can enjoy, at that point, it was cyberpunk kind of thriller. Are they somebody that, opens up a book and like, oh, I am transported to ancient China and I'm learning about mud chicken and I am laughing at the way this woman kind of puts people in their place with her words. If they're not potentially part of that sort of enjoyment or understanding, is there, I didn't get it. I don't get it. I don't know what you're talking about. That's right. Almost a positive in some.
You're right. Yeah, I'll keep that in mind when.
Maybe I say thank you. Have a nice day, and move on. So we have one question left. We are at the very end of our questions. Do you hide any secrets in your books that only a few people will find?
I do it all the time, but I'm expecting everyone to find them. And if they don't, it'll be revealed to them later in the story. It's identities of people and the true intent. You have the story builds into some kind of a conclusion, and you foreshadow that conclusion. And if they find it, they'll say, "Yay! I beat the main character to figure this out." But if they don't find it, they'll still see the same conclusion. So I'm hoping more will find it. I'm hoping more people will cheer themselves on. The main character is stupid. I figured this out already. But
chapter 3. I've known it since chapter 3. Come on, figure it out. Okay, good. Now I'm going to open the floor to you. Is there anything else you want to say? Is there something that you kind of prepared for and you were like, well, we didn't really go over this, or anything about the Orchid Farmers Sacrifice you can tell us?
Not really. I mean, I've just finished book 2, and I'm in that horrible editing phase where it's so left brain you can't even have a beer to get your to ease the pain, because you need your full left brain function. So that's what I'm doing now, and that's where we are, I guess. I have a free prequel that's out there that I hope people, once they're on Amazon, they download the free prequel. If they're attached to the characters, they'll come after this book. And
so tell me more about the free prequel. What's it called? Is it just on Amazon? Is it an Amazon exclusive, or is it everywhere?
It's just on Amazon. It's free. It's a 15,000 word novella. It's about the three main characters in the series. Books 1, 2, and 3 are about three different people, but it happens simultaneously. So the ending of each of the first three books ends on the same position of the timeline. So it all ends, with the same ending as book 1, Orchid Farmers Sacrifice. And I had to write it like this because the story that I planned was too long. And if I wrote it in from beginning and all three and write about all three characters along the way, book 1 will end without a real ending, without a real resolution to any problems. So I decided to focus on one character first, focus on a second character, even though they share some scenes together, all three of them. But it'll be from a different point of view. And then focus on a third character on a third book. And then the fourth will be the conclusion of the plot. And so that's why book 2 being done is a big relief. Not done editing, unfortunately, but just start writing book 3 when this editing is done.
And we know that we're going to get 4 books in this world at least, and then we're going to get more later on. Obviously barring that ubiquitous, potentially sudden bus, but we will be getting more of those. And we'll make sure to have a couple of old fashions in your honor while you undergo the editing process.
Thank you.
Yeah. Maybe I'll get Kick to crack a beer so we can share in spirit before you finish that editing process.
Okay.
Alrighty, so thank you so much, Fred. Thank you.
It was a pleasure.
It was a pleasure. Thanks, and thanks for coming. Yes, it was about Kung Fu. I couldn't. It's like I can't do this without him sitting
I wouldn't
there.
want to miss
You're a
that.
martial artist.
Yeah. Well, yeah. But it's one thing to start learning, how to do the walk and things like that in Bagua and kind of walk in circles and get some flow. It's a completely different thing to be a Taekwondo person and to have somebody with such, years of practice. I won't say how many because not allowed him. But it's another thing to have somebody that actually has a very beautiful touch and flow with it. For me, I'm still in that okay, we're gonna breathe for like half an hour because you clearly need to breathe to get the flow going until I'm finally did I do it for 5 seconds? You were calm. Our poor body opponent back downstairs. Let me tell you. Anyways, it was a fantastic pleasure. I hope everybody goes out and gets the Orchid Farmers Sacrifice. And I want to say again, thank you so much to Shannon at R&R Book Tours and Susan for setting this interview up so we can all have some fun. And we hope everybody has a fantastically creative day. All of links for social media for the books and everything will be down in the description. And if you are not in a place where you can see the descriptions, please go search for The Orchid Farmers Sacrifice by Fred Hugh. We are MacroMicroCosm Literary Review, and good night. Have a good day.